So I really wanted to talk about my birth, the birth of my son, and my birth experience. I went into the doctor's at 40 weeks and 4 days on my 2-year wedding anniversary. And that morning, was really tired. I was 9 months pregnant, so, super tired. And I was so excited for our anniversary. I had saved up some money to order some food that I really wanted. And we're going to go get a cake. And so I was like, no, I'm not going to eat breakfast. I'm just going to have a banana. And so I ate my banana and we went to my non-stress test, which is hands down the worst name for a test that is as stressful as it is. It's super stressful for the mom, at least it was for me. So I get hooked up to the machines and we start seeing little contractions. And at the same time we're seeing the contractions, we're seeing little heart decels in my son. And after about an hour and a half to 2 hours, the nurse comes in and says, your son did not pass the non-stress test, so we need to send you down to labor and delivery to be observed. So, kind of freaking out. A first-time mom, first pregnancy ever, and I'm about to go to the labor and delivery because my son did not pass his non-stress test. So I was kind of freaking out. So we go down to labor and delivery, and the doctor comes in and she tells us that they're going to monitor me for a couple hours to see how my son does. But that more than likely I would be having a baby in the extremely near future. And so I get hooked up for all my tests or not the tests, but the monitoring. And at about 9 p.m., the doctor comes back and says, right now we know that you have a healthy baby that is alive, but because he's having so many heart decels, we don't know whether or not, we can't send you home, basically. Because we don't know what would happen if we did. So, they tell me that they're going to start Pitocin and that I would be having a baby within 24 hours. My birth plan was to have no interventions at all. I didn't want to be induced. I didn't want, an epidural. I didn't want any of that. So they start the Pitocin at about 9 p.m. and I start getting a little bit more frequent contractions. The ones I was having originally, they weren't very painful. I could hardly feel them. It was just a little tiny bit uncomfortable. But at 9 months, who's not uncomfortable? And so they start the Pitocin and they keep coming in every so often and bumping it up to try to make me progress faster. And my son keeps having the decels. So at about 1 a.m., I believe, they said that they wanted to break my water and put it in an internal monitor because they were having a really hard time monitoring my son, and they were worried about what that would mean for him. So I agreed to the internal monitoring and to break my water. And at this point, I still hadn't had an epidural. I believe I was about 5 centimeters dilated, and I was super uncomfortable. But I was managing the pain until they broke my water. That was seriously one of the most painful things I have ever experienced in my entire life. And I would never again, ever allow anybody to break my water. So they broke my water, and the pain just came on fast and strong. I seriously was like in an unbelievable amount of pain. So I asked for some pain medicine, but I still didn't want the epidural. So they give me a little bit of pain medicine, and all it really does is help me sleep for a couple of hours. But by the time I wake up, I'm in just crazy pain. I'm having like huge contractions, and I'm super uncomfortable. So they come in and check me again. So they come in and they give me the epidural, which I asked for. And, they check me again, and I'm about 8 centimeters. So we're getting closer. And after the epidural, like, I kind of felt like it didn't work all that good. Like, I didn't feel like it worked very well, but I was kind of managing the pain. And so I got a little bit more rest, and I started to feel like I needed to push. And so the nurse comes in and she tells me that it's not time yet. I was only 9.5 centimeters. So she said it wasn't time. But you know, I really felt like it was time to push. Like, I really had that sensation that I needed to push. So I called her back, and she comes and checks, and it was time. So I pushed for 2 hours, and the doctor came in and said that there was minimal change in him, and that they didn't think that I'd be able to give birth. So I needed to have a C-section. So the part that I really struggled about with this was, what does minimal change mean? I didn't know if that meant, you know, he hadn't gone down as much as they would have liked him to, or if he wasn't moving at all, or, you know, exactly what was it. So I kind of struggled with that, and I felt, especially after reading my paperwork, and it's saying that the reason why he was born from the C-section was because of the heart decels, which isn't what they told me. So I kind of had a problem with that, and I felt like I didn't really give informed consent because they said it was because I couldn't push him out, not because he was having heart problems. Had I known he was having heart problems, I would have said, you know, absolutely no problem. I would have had no doubts that that was the right thing to do. But that's not what they said. So they take me back to do the C-section, and right as soon as they pull my son out, I'm sorry, right before they take me back to do the C-section, they tell me that my son had meconium in his water, and that I wouldn't be able to do skin to skin right away. And I was really frustrated that I wasn't told before that he had meconium in his water, because they should have told me when my water was broken. I feel like it would have, you know, not knowing that they were taking my kid away from me the second they were born was a really unfair thing for them to do. Especially because if I would have given birth vaginally, they would have just taken him and gave me no explanation, and it would have, you know, it may have further added to the trauma of my birth experience. But they tell me that I'm not going to be able to do skin to skin right away. So they take me back to the operating room, and they pull out my son, and all I can hear is him crying. And it is seriously the most difficult thing I've ever heard in my entire life. It was heart-wrenching. It broke my heart. Like, I could hear my baby crying for me, and there was absolutely nothing I could do. I was strapped down to a table. So I cried, and I cried, and I cried. And as I'm sitting there crying, like, I can start feeling pain in my stomach where they're cutting me open, or where they have cut me open. And the anesthesiologist comes over to me, and he asks if I'm okay. And I told him that it was really starting to hurt. And he starts freaking out. He is yelling at people in the room, and he's trying to find the medicine. So him freaking out is making me freak out more. So there's just full-blown panic in the room. And that just kind of added to the trauma of my experience. So after all of that, after he gives me the medicine to kind of help make me not feel as much, my husband brings over my son, and he's wrapped in a blanket, and he has a hat on his head. So I can't even really see what my little boy looks like. And that was another thing that was really hard for me, is meeting my son. Like, he was all wrapped up and I couldn't really see what he looked like. I couldn't hold him because I was strapped down to a table. It was just really hard. And so the next thing that I remember is we're going back to the room, and I'm asking if I can breastfeed, because breastfeeding is super important to me, was super important to me. And I wanted to be sure that I was able to breastfeed within an hour of him being born. And we were getting close to that hour. So they tell me that I can't, because they're going to take me up to the floor where I'm going to recover soon, and that there wasn't enough time for me to breastfeed. So I get back to the room thinking that it's just going to be me and my husband, at least for a few minutes, so that I can actually get to hold my baby and, get to meet him. And we walk in, and all of our families are in there. And as much as I love my family and my husband's family, we really wanted a chance. I really wanted a chance to get to hold my baby, because I hadn't gotten to at that point. And the last thing I really wanted to do was give him up. But I passed him around the room, and everybody got to meet him. And it had been a few hours after he was born that I finally got to breastfeed, which was kind of disappointing to me. And so after we get up to our recovery room, the nurse comes in and says that he needs to take a bath right now. And I was like, well, can we wait? I really want to be the one to do it. I didn't get to hold my son when he was born. My husband got to hold him first. So I really wanted to give him his first bath. She tells me no, and that he needs to take a bath right now, which I think is kind of stupid looking back at it. I don't understand why they couldn't wait. Like, it is my kid. I feel like I should have been able to make that call, but I wasn't allowed to. So that was a lot to do with the reason why I had so much stress and anxiety about my birth, was I felt like everything I wanted was taken away from me. And I felt like all of my wishes were not respected. So fast forward 3 years, and the reason why I'm making this video is because I want to let other moms know who are maybe struggling with their birth experience that you can heal. I just went to the hospital to see my friend, or not to see my friend, but to support my friend having her C-section and to support her birth. And the last time I was at the hospital was when my nephew was being born, and I couldn't handle it. I cried so hard. I seriously thought I was going to have a panic attack, and I felt horrible because I didn't want her to know the reason why I was crying. And thankfully I was able to play it off fine. I ended up, going home and crying my eyes out. It was awful. It was so awful. But this time I was able to go to the same hospital where my son was born, and I was able to support my friend and be there for her, and it wasn't bad. I even saw the doctor that, did my C-section, and I didn't feel like I was going to go into a panic. I actually felt okay. I'm amazed at how far I've come. When my son was first born, I couldn't even say that I gave birth. That was a huge thing for me to overcome, was to be able to say I gave birth to my son, because I felt like he was taken from me. I felt like he was ripped out of my body. That's actually exactly how I described it before. But now that I have gone through counseling for 2 years, and I've talked about it with my family, and I've talked about it with my husband and my friends, and processed through everything, like, I'm able to say I gave birth. I gave birth to a little boy. I gave birth to my son. And that was huge. Saying that is huge. You have no idea how huge that is for me to say. But I just want other women to know, if they're struggling, you know, there is help. You can go to counseling like I did, and you can overcome the fears and all of the bad feelings from having a bad birth experience. And, you know, I just want to say, before I end this video, if you are going to comment something saying, at least you have a baby, at least he's alive, or anything like that, just don't comment. I will delete you. I will block you. Saying that my feelings are less because somebody has it worse is like saying that I can't be happy because somebody else is happier than me, or somebody has a better life than me. And I feel like that was a great quote. I don't know who said it, but I remember hearing that quote somewhere, and it really helped me heal. It's okay that I was sad. It's okay that, you know, me and my husband are still struggling to have another child. And I feel like the part of the reason why we've struggled in getting pregnant is because I wasn't healed enough to experience birth again. And I feel like now I could go through birth again and I won't be horrified. I won't be traumatized. I won't be scared. I mean, there will still always be trauma. There will still always be things that make me feel sad, like not being able to see what my son looked like when he came into this world. But I have an amazing little boy that I got out of all of that. And if I had to do it all over again, I would, in a heartbeat, because he's totally worth it. That if you are struggling, just know that you're not alone. And there are lots of great groups, Facebook groups out there that, you know, talk about these kinds of things. I've been in a lot of VBAC groups. It's vaginal birth after cesarean. And that's helped me heal a lot as well. Seeing women go on from having similar birth experiences as I did to giving birth vaginally was, you know, really healing for me, because I know that if they can do it, I can do it. And, you know, I may not ever know what it feels like to carry another child in my womb. I may not ever have another baby, but I know that if this is the only birth experience that I get to have, that I'm okay with it now. Again, I probably won't ever be okay with not being able to see my son when he was first born, and getting some of those bonding things taken away from me, but it's okay. I'm gonna just hold him a little tighter and snuggle him a little extra, and I'm gonna heal, and that's all that really matters. But I hope you all have a fabulous day, and I really hope that this helped someone out there.